Good morning, everybody. So just to make things straight and clear, it's 9 a.m., it's Friday, you are at the ATTD in Berlin. For those of you who are out in Berlin, these nights are long, I know, that's why I thought it might be of help to acknowledge you are at the Ypsomed symposium, and I have an interesting challenge now, because the first speaker is Lutz Heinemann. I think that's me, so I have to announce myself now. I hope that's not too strange, but let me give you a little bit an introduction into, I think, what I very much know, that we have an interesting session here which will give you an insight into automated insulin delivery. So my talk is clearly as the first one, it's just a little wake up. Then the serious guys shows up. That means Roman Hovorka and Torben Biester will present you data. I'm just the elderly guy with gray hairs giving a little hello, why are you here, what we want to hear about, and so on. So let me walk over there, and then I continue. So the need for automated insulin delivery. To be honest, I'm not sure if so many people in the room who would disagree with this statement, but yeah. I think my disclosures here, I get a honorarium for this talk, fine. So, as I said, just a little bit of background. We are still hoping for a cure of diabetes, and clearly the hope was for many years, and still people are working on it, that diabetes would disappear, that we have a biological cure. I'm a believer in it? No. Do I think that we have a technical cure? Yes. Is it the dream? I'm not sure about this, because as like with nuclear plants and so on, technology always have a risk of failures. So should work perfectly, but as we know, there are some tricks associated to it. So I've made a little statement about my age and my gray hairs. Some decades ago, there was another professor from Germany, Ernst Pfeiffer, I don't know who you ever have met him, and at this point in time, 1987, he was in a position like myself now, and he said, okay, in 5 years, probably in 3 years' time, we will have an automated insulin delivery system. And I think this was the most constant thing over time, that each time it was in 2 or 3 years. Actually, some 2 or 3 years ago, since then, or 5 years probably by now, we have an automated insulin delivery system. So we are in the rosy future. The first systems that he has developed in Ulm are not the ones I would like to walk along the Friedrichstraße or wherever, but I think these were the early days, and it was quite helpful for the science behind automated insulin delivery system to work with such systems, a portable or movable biostator at this point in time. Let me show you one table here from a recently published article or review about AID systems. And in this table, we try to handle the confusion that is around about terminology. Terminology, language matters. I prefer automated insulin delivery, but you can see here that we try to handle all the other names that are around. I think it's important, especially if you talk to the non-specialists at healthcare insurance companies and so on. What are you talking about here? Closed loop? SUP? Whatever? So send a clear message. And I think that the FDA was also helpful, because when they approved the first AID system, this is the terminology they have used. David Klonoff, I think some 2 years ago, looked into it. And what is the dosing or delivery terminology? He looked up and I think it's a very straightforward approach. Go to Google and enter one term and then the other one and look how often it's cited. So I would go for automated insulin delivery, and we should be consistent with it. If you check out also, it's an interesting way of analyzing the progress of science. You don't read the individual publication anymore, you just check how many hits do we find in PubMed, and you see how the number of hits has increased in the last years. So AID systems are there, they are here. You can find, and this is a little selection of Roman Hovorka's publications in the last years. Why I'm showing you this slide? Some 20, 30 years ago, when Ernst Pfeiffer was there, he was able to publish something in Diabetologia. However, in the majority of the publications, there are these technology guys with their gadgets and so on. Now, as you can see here, and you don't have to read the individual title, but you see this is New England Journal and so on and so on. This is state-of-the-art in the treatment of patients with type 1, type 2 diabetes. So even in high-ranked journals, they acknowledge the good studies there and the impact this technology has on the life of patients with diabetes. Sometimes I believe we should think about, okay, what do we want to achieve? Is it convenience? Is it what we are talking about? This is a slide here I have stolen from Richard Bergenstahl, and I think it's helpful to sometimes keep in mind, okay, this is what we would like to have. A time and range between these, I think you can see limits here, and this is the aim of the whole activity that Roman and Torben will show you in a minute. This was the positive thing. And if you talk to patients, clearly for them AID systems are a revolution. This is really a game changer. It has an immediate relief effect on them in every day. You must not think 24/7, oh, can I eat something or drink something? This is handled by the system. So they have an enormous benefit of it. In former times, and I am somewhat interested in insulin absorption and so on, and what we have seen there is a huge variability in insulin absorption, and this system here, AID system, helps to overcome these hurdles there. The time and range is much better with AID systems. Do I say we have to use from this company this AID system or this one? No, I would say the outcome is with all AID systems, you see an improvement. Are they equal? No, that's not what I have said. If you are somebody who wants to have a very physically active lifestyle, a given AID system might be better on the other one. So you should have the individual situation of the patient in mind. The story is a little bit different if you approach not the people in the room, not the specialist, but if you talk to the average diabetologist, he said, come on, these devices, how many are there? The instructions for use have 400 pages. Who in the hell should read this and who should understand what's going on? My nurse will handle it, or my diabetes educator. So the clinicians are a little bit more in a challenging situation, to my understanding, at least in Germany. So, but on the other hand, if you don't have to handle all the technology all the time, I think there's a support for the personal interaction between the physician and the patient. If you are interested in more in-depth, and these are two recent publications, the one on the left is from a consensus statement of the ATTD group. Here you see Moshe Philip as the first author and Tadej Bartolino as the senior author. On the right side you have a recent publication by a group of the ADA and ESD. We have published similar statements about CGM, apps, and so on. So in these publications, and especially ours on the right side, we have not talked about a given AID system. There's no product name in it. Our aim was to discuss from a clinical, critical point of view, what are AID systems good for, what are their pros and cons, and so on. If there's a lot of light, there's also shadow. So, challenges, do I see something? Yes. Manage expectations. If somebody believes, oh, you simply have to hook up a system and I'm cured, diabetes is gone, I would be a little bit careful, because there are issues, and especially from our German, European point of view, I see a clear need for a good education and training of the patients / nurses / physicians. So, as I try to indicate, there are different systems around. In these systems come in new generations year by year. Does it make life easier? Most of the time, not all of the time. We have evidence now for and I have shown you some publications for AID systems. Have we evidence for all patient groups, for all AID systems? Probably not. There are some aspects, and we will see progress with the AID systems, I'm pretty sure, in the next years, when it comes to full AID systems. That means also the meal, the prendial insulin requirements are then hopefully more optimally covered. What I would like to initiate also with such a talk is that we see what is going on, but that we also see, okay, where are the weak points, what to do? What are the next steps? Some of you might say, oh, the AID systems that I see at the industry exhibition or so, these are perfect systems. I disagree. I think that we are in early days of the development. There are a number of aspects of AID systems, think about infusion sets and so on, that have a lot of potential in it to improve. I see a need for faster insulins. I acknowledge that the experience of the last years with a very ultra-fast insulin were not as promising or as positive as I have anticipated. So I see a number of improvements in the next years, also from a cost perspective. If you talk to insurance companies in Germany, they get nervous. Oh, all these patients will have an AID system. What are the annual costs of such systems? Not the topic of today. So I see a room for further optimization and individualization by also using, for example, artificial intelligence. The system tells me here I have, now my time budget is gone, so I will not go into detail here. However, I think in the future there is a lot of additional information by variables and so on that can be very much of help to improve the performance of a given AID system. So I hope that my little wake-up call here, hopefully everybody's awake, coffee is outside, has helped you a little bit to understand, okay, AID systems are here, they will become the standard to my understanding. They are not plug and play. There are differences between the systems, you will hear about it in a second. You should think about for which patient might be this AID system the best one. Clearly more products will come to the market at the ATTD in 10 years, and I will not be around here, don't be afraid. We might see many more AID systems on the market. So I see also the opportunity to have more information be used, and glucose is only one, an important, I acknowledge, but only one parameter to be taken into account. So the development is highly dynamic. I see many positive aspects, but as I try to indicate here, we have room also for improvement. We have seen a lot of good work from Cambridge, and we will hear about it now. Thank you very much for your attention. So now I'm back in my other role as the chair of this symposium, and I would like to ask Roman to come to the stage and give you an insight in the uniqueness of the Roman Hovorka CamAPS system, or is the title a bit different, Roman?
It's a little bit more formal officially, just not Roman Hovorka closed-loop system. And I just want to say thank you very much for the introduction. What I'm going to present is not Roman Hovorka closed-loop system. It is team's work at Cambridge and also our collaborators. And I just want to say at the very beginning, we have been fortunate to be joined in our work with our collaborators on this journey to help people to live better lives. So this is my disclosure. I am the director of the CamDiab who is commercializing CamAPS FX system. I'd like to share with you what the CamAPS FX is. I normally try to show all the systems. I'm really a great fan of the closed-loop system in general, but I will be focusing today on the CamAPS FX. I share with you what are the special features, what we think is unique about it. It by no means is the best system for everybody. I think the best closed-loop system for people is the one which people are going to use. I will share with you some snippets of clinical evidence and provide sort of high level what we've done. I think with our collaborators and in the UK, outside the UK, and the US as well, we collected the largest number of randomized clinical trials for any closed-loop system. So I'm very proud of it, and I want to share it with you as well. Psychosocial outcomes are so important. It's just not about the glucose. It's about how people live, what is the benefit on the quality of life. And we also have a new data collected with the real-world analysis from Ypsomed users. Currently, the use of the CamAPS FX, which is available in 15 countries in the world, it is exponentially increasing. We have about 1,200 new users every month, and it's increasing about 20% on each month. So we can share with you some of the data which we collected from June when we started commercialization with the Ypsomed pump. So what is the CamAPS? It is designed as an interoperable app, currently running on an Android phone, compatible Android phone. I just want to say it needs to have a good connectivity to the devices. It's connected to the Ypso pump, fantastic pump, lightweight, very user-friendly. And we now have a connection to two sensors, Dexcom G6, which you know very well, but we also have a connection to Freestyle Libre 3, fantastic sensor, 14 days, non-calibrating, very small, very human factor, very good connection as well. Currently, it is available in the Freestyle Libre 3 just in Germany, but throughout the 2023, it will be becoming available in other countries in Europe. And we're working very closely with these CGM companies on making a very smooth journey, I think, as was indicated in the previous talk. The issue is not just about providing system, but also providing the right customer support training materials. A bit more about the app itself. We're also working on the iOS design as well, but currently we have just Android system. It is the interoperability, which we are really proud of. Inside that app, and the app is really, it doesn't include just the algorithm, it includes lots of things about the algorithm to make it user-friendly and to hide some of the complexities. There is the model predictive growth algorithm, which has been developed over 15 years, and there's enormous clinical data to support it. It serves as a CGM receiver for alerts, alarms. It has a bolus wizard. You can remotely bolus, which is very good for convenience. You can send the data to the cloud. Currently with Diasen and Gluco is coming in March or April this year. And we have a new feature. We have a mirror feature, so the child can have the phone and they will see the data. But we have the same app can be used also to see the mirror, the data seen by the child app as well. So the data are through end-to-end point encryption shared through the cloud, and people could do real-time monitoring, get the alerts as well. That was released about 2 weeks ago. It is a CE-mark device, so it's available currently outside US in the appropriate territories. The CE markings from the age 1 year and up, including pregnancy. And it's the only system for the very young children available right now, and the only one available for the pregnancy. It's quite a wide range for the weight, and also total daily insulin from 5 units per day. We would recommend diluting insulin below total daily dose of 8 units. It's really about the resolution of the pump delivery, which is challenging for the children. Sometimes it's possible, sometimes it's not possible. A bit more about the algorithm. It is easy to set up, but there's lots of complexity, lots of advanced features within the algorithm which the user doesn't see. So you just need a body weight to set it up and total daily dose, and you can straight go into the closed loop. There is no warm-up period. You don't need to collect data. All the titration is independent from the setting of the basal, insulin to carb ratio, correction factor, some other system like Control IQ. You need to set these parameters correctly for the algorithm to work. Here it is not, which is strength and weakness as well. You don't need to modify these factors as the insulin dose changes in newly diagnosed type 1s, etc. It is highly adaptive. So there's an adaptive algorithm. You don't see it, or the user doesn't see it. So it's scaling the insulin needs from day to day. It is scaling the needs over 24 hours, so it will try to find out whether some part of the day needs more insulin or less. And it's also looking whether the insulin carb ratio, which is used for both calculators, are correct, and will supplement it, but it will learn whether the person is giving more or less insulin systematically for different meals. So unique features. We have the widest target range from 4.4 to 11 millimoles. Some of the lower target range is used in pregnancy. Sometimes people want to write tight. For the high glucose values, so for the very young children, we can start them a little bit higher, and Torben will be talking about it. We have people who have been running high very long time, so they want to go slowly down into the target range, which is default is 5.8 millimoles per liter. We have boost function, so people not only can tell the system there is a activity coming, which we call ease off, but we have the boost. We're telling the system, hey, I need more insulin, and the system will give more insulin appropriately, so try to prevent hypoglycemia still. We have the FSL3 integration, and I mentioned the companions already. In terms of personalization, we try to make it not too complicated. The more features you give to people, the more likely they are to be misused. So we are very carefully, we learn from our clinical trials what we like to provide. We have 3 main features, which is the personal target. So you can, every 30 minutes, you can change your target throughout the 24 hours. You have the boost and the ease off for the exercise and for additional insulin. And you can plan the boost off into the future. So if you know that your child is going to have a PE at 10 o'clock in the morning, you can set it up at the breakfast time, and the system will kick in for that. I mentioned the companions, so the child phone can invite up to 10 companions, and the companions will be seeing the data. They will also know whether the data is being received, so they get an alert whether glucose is high or low. They can set their own alerts, and they also get information if there's a connectivity through the cloud interrupted. In terms of clinical trial, I didn't want to provide everything which what we've done. On the left, on the first column is the acronyms of our closed-loop studies. All of them are randomized clinical trials. I just want to really stress that. We always try to share or compare a closed-loop system to a comparator. On the second column, you have the durations, how these studies were lasting, and the shortest is about 28 days, and our longest published is 2 years. It was the one in newly diagnosed teenagers who used the system for 2 years, so that study will be, actually it's ongoing, we will have a data for 4 years of continuous closed-loop study in the randomized clinical trials. We have 3 studies in very young children, 1 to 7-year-old. We've done a number of studies in the children, which is 3 studies, adolescents and adults. We did 1 study in seniors, 60 and plus, and also we did studies pregnancies, another study which will be published later on, I think this year, with large randomized clinical trials. So we have enormous of data and the unique data of clinical studies. What also help us, and I think Lutz also mentioned it as well, we were able to test different scenarios, how to onboard people, pump first, CGM first, both together. We were able to develop educational material for various combinations. So this experience really helped us to prepare for the commercial launch, and also what is needed for successful onboarding and helping people to troubleshoot. Clinical results is very similar to lots of closed-loop systems, so I don't want to overstate it. We have reduced glycated hemoglobin, increased time in range, about 10%, like most of the system. Sometimes we reduce hypoglycemia, but not always, and improve quality of life. I will just share two main studies which we've done in our evaluation. This is the longest study we've done so far. The study was designed to test whether improving glucose control will help the pancreas to maintain its C-peptide secretion, insulin secretion over time, so reduce the metabolic stress on it. Unfortunately, it did not, so we did not see through improved glucose control that the reduction of residual C-peptide secretion is affected. In both groups, you could see the reduction of C-peptide independent of glucose control. But what we are able to show is that with the closed-loop system from diagnosis, and the diagnosis, we put the closed-loop system on these teenagers, 10 to 17-year-old, we put the closed-loop on them, and within 21 days of diagnosis. So it was really very, very early from them. The system was able to adopt and change the insulin needs behind the scene. So the healthcare professional didn't need to change the pump setting. Having said that, we would recommend that basal insulin delivery is regularly reviewed, and the reason is because if the closed loop is exited for whatever reason, the pre-programmed basal will kick in, and it needs to be reasonably set up. So time in range in this group was increased by 14%, mean glucose changed by 1.7, and HbA1c 1.0 compared to the comparator. And I think what is important is these are teenagers. These are the most difficult, one of the most difficult population, and you can see that over the 24 months, the glucose in the control group glucose keep going down. The A1C in the closed loop group, it's stable, even go a little bit down, and the reason is we actually moved midway through the study into the CamAPS FX, which has higher time in auto mode than our previous prototype. This was another challenging study that's been published early 2022 in New England. We were very pleased to get it there. It was a work of consortium, a European consortium from Austria, Germany, Luxembourg, and UK, testing the closed-loop system with 75 users in the randomized clinical trial crossover study design in these very young children over 4 months. In certain countries, and it's not the UK, glucose control is very tight for the very young children. That include Austria, it includes Luxembourg, it includes Germany as well. So these children came to the study very well controlled. Despite that, with closed-loop system, we are still able to improve the outcomes as well. Reduction of mean glucose by 0.7 millimoles and increased time in range by 9%. Possibly also important is that this achievement into control group is done at the expense of enormous effort by the parents. They really feel duty for their children. They really spend lots of nights, lots of days trying to tweak it, try to do lots of efforts. And I will show you with a couple slides as well, indicating that with the closed-loop system, we not only improve outcomes, but you also reduce this burden on the parents. This is from the same study. It's another slide basically showing is over the 4 months of the closed-loop use, the target glucose, which is on the left-hand panel here, remains stable, and I think it's common with lots of closed-loop systems. Once you turn the closed-loop on and it stays on, you see the improvement straight away, and it stays sustained over the 4 months. And on the right-hand panel that shows you, this is the time in range in the control group. It was randomized, it was crossover study design. This is in the closed loop, and you can see most people are above this, in this triangle above, which tells you is nearly everybody gets improved. All the children get improved time in range. And I think the other thing, which is also what you see, is that those with lowest time in range in the control group have the greatest improvement. And again, this is quite common. So we are getting the largest improvement of those who are the most poorly or not well controlled. The other thing which is important, we don't get everybody on the same level on the closed loop. Those who are pretty not well controlled, they are improved, but they don't get to the level there. And this is again common theme. It might reflect other things. We don't actually know whether it's physiological or whether it's a lifestyle. Better control, so by the quality of life things. So we have independent psychologists who do interviews over the phone. It was in the COVID space or COVID time as well, with the parents, and the parents shared with us that indicating they perceive themselves that there is a better control. And they realize they can't really compete. For some of the parents, it's challenging to hand over the control to the closed-loop system, but they can see they can't compete. They can't change the insulin delivery every 10 minutes as the system does. It is just not possible, so they realize it's better if the system does it. Sleep is very important for parents, and I think through closed loop that aspect is seen in our studies and all the other steps as well. there are other benefits about increased confidence in the child is other scares. For parents, they do feel they get, it's just not for the children, it's for the whole family. The whole family see benefits. They are able to resume normal activities. Some are even contemplating getting to full-time employment. One thing which is not there is, which you just mentioned, they I think have more time for siblings as well. That's a really important part. So real-time analysis. We collected data which were obtained from the 9th of May to 3rd of December last year in 15 countries. We used the user selection criteria, at least 30 days of CGM data after closed loop initiated and at least 30 time in closed loop. We have some people who use the app in open loop, so we want to just to avoid them. So this is real-time analysis, is looking how the system performs. It's lots of numbers here, so I will try to guide you through that. We divided the data into the overall control and according to the age groups. So you can see the columns, the overalls, less than 6 years, 7 to 14, 15 to 21, 20 to 64, and then 65. So this is the age, which is not surprisingly different in these age categories. Time in closed loop, on average, it's 95%, or this is actually median. So this would suggest that the system is used very well, is staying in the closed loop for a very high amount of time in this real-world analysis, and you can see this is sustained throughout all the age groups. Mean glucose, not surprisingly, the worst glucose control in terms of mean glucose is in the youngest one. These are the most challenging, and sometimes is reflected because some parent and some indication indicate that there should be a higher target glucose range for these children. So when you increase the target, your glucose will be higher as well. And the lowest is in the seniors, about 65 years. So the mean glucose for this is 7.7. I can see it actually going down in the adults. This is reflected by the time in range. So again, the best time in range is in those in the seniors, which is we have about 82% time in range, and it's about 67 in the very young children. Again, it's consistent with our data from clinical research, randomized clinical trials, indicating that the seniors are doing the best compared to them, comparing the rest. And time in hypoglycemia is comparable. Again, the very youngest, they are the most challenging, and again, we know it from randomized clinical trials. They are the ones where day-to-day insulin needs is more challenging. There is the unpredictable physical activities, unpredictable eating patterns, so it is not unexpected. We have ongoing pediatric studies. I wanted to share those which we finished, but there are some more. I'd like to acknowledge the support of the funding bodies which help us to collect the randomized clinical studies. And as I said, I just finished is closed loop system is just not about the app. It's all the ecosystems, about the connectivity and about the usability, about the educational material. And for that, I just want grateful to my colleagues and also to Ypsomed, who decided to be the first in class to providing these materials and to provide the first level clinical customer support as well. With that, thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Roman, for this quite interesting overview insight. We will have Q&A at the very end of the symposium session. So, Torben, a different view, a different German experience again.
Thank you very much, Lutz. Thanks to Ypsomed for having me here, for giving the possibility to show our experience we had over the last month with the CamAPS system we're having now. Of course, it's an industry symposium, also working with other industry. Just to show you how the background of the German situation in our healthcare system is. Insulin pumps and CGM are usually covered for all of our children. You have to have an indication to prescribe the systems. In preschoolers, it's easy with the indication. There is an indication for insulin pump So you don't have to justify for that. We still have to justify why we should prescribe CGM to children, even the small ones. We have to do that, and that makes it sometimes hard, but we do, and mostly of them then we get the sensors. And that's why the situation is, as you see here, there was prescription ability and payment by health insurance companies for sensors in 2016, and that's the reason why you have that uprising curve there for the sensor. This is data from the DPV registry. Pumps are increasing steadily, still increasing since 2003, and there is most of them who have a pump also have a sensor. If you have 85% CGM, most of them have both, and I think the sensor-pump interaction group here is a little bit underrepresented, what might be the case of the registry, because it's self-entered data by the centers. So this is where we are. Our center, we are the largest center for children with diabetes in Germany, and it's our approach to provide the best technology legally available for all of our kids treated in our center. So that's the reason why we, until last year, we had the sensor-augmented pump therapy, meaning predictive low suspension below the age of 6 to all our onset kids, once we had the sensor. And 100% of our preschoolers have CGM, 100% of them have an insulin pump. The older ones, we have to start them on MDI, then we have to justify the pump, we have to find a medical reason, what's usually no problem, we can justify that to the health insurance companies, and same for CGM. So the first possibility to start on CSI for the older ones is after 3 months of having the diabetes. And since May 22, CamAPS is available in Germany, and that was the reason why when we said, okay, let's start with this. Roman Hovorka showed you the data published by Dr. Ware in January last year, and therefore we knew it's working, it's good to the kids, and that's why we start, because there was this unfulfilled, unmet need to have an AID system for the preschoolers, and once we had the chance, we say, okay, let's start. And that's the reason why since last year, the May, we do it in all our onset kids above the age of 2. This CamAPS itself, it's approved for 1 year and above, but it's the sensor that's 2 years and above, so that's the we do it, as I said before, CGM is pending at the moment of onset when the kids are in the clinic. So we start with the Ypsomed pump immediately. Depends on their stage when they come. If they are in DK, of course, not the first day. Usually we start with the infusion then for the first time. Then we start with a constant basal rate, calculated after the children's weight or after the insulin need we've seen before at on the IV therapy. And usually onset kids are treated 10 days in-house in our center. Of course, one discussed that is that necessary or not due to costs and due to the work we do. We think it helps the parents. They stay with us. They have lots of questions. We can answer them. So that's how we do. As we don't have a sensor, but we want to have them on a bolus calculator, we use the mylife app being installed on the parent's phone by then. We enter all the carb ratios, their correction factor, and so on, and we start with a target of 120 milligram per deciliter, 6.7 millimoles, just to start, to avoid hypoglycemia at the first, because as we all know, that's what parents fear the most, the hypoglycemia. So of course we want to avoid that, not to make them frightened at the beginning of the therapy. We prescribe the sensor as soon as possible to have it ready soon. It takes some weeks, but we're unhappy with that. It's 6 weeks or more until the permission. That's the German healthcare system. I wrote bureaucracy here. You could also add a Z. It's bureaucracy sometimes. And the parents have to take care for a compatible phone. So there is the list provided by the sensor company where you can see all the compatible phones, and we have to ask the parents to buy it on their own. And in some rare cases we had until now where the parents just couldn't afford to buy it on their own because of, well, poorness. We had a chance with our help in our hospital to buy it for them, so we could provide, but it's seldom the case. Once CGM is there, we're all happy, and then we can change to CamAPS as soon as possible. We started to do it with 2 nights on the ward at the beginning, to retrain them, to ask for the fears, and to set up the system. And then we had the RS virus at the end of last year, and we had no chance to administer any children by such reasons, and then we did it outpatient, and it works as well. There is an online training that has to be done before families are able to start the app. We ask them to do it at home before, so once they come to us, they already have done the training, so they have a code then that makes the app able to start. If they do not manage to do the training by whatever reasons, for example, those poor families without a computer, we do together with them. Once the training the home training is done, we do the hands-on training with the families, complementary with the sensor training, and then we can start the system right away. We start also with the 120 personal target then, and we individualize it afterwards. What we've done in the past, in conventional pump therapy, you have this circadianness of the basal rate according to insulin need. We do it with a target now. So we have different target in different times of the day. You know, the small kids, you have growth hormone at the time of getting to sleep. They need more insulin then we lower the target there to have more insulin by the system. It was a recommendation that we had from the Cambridge team to not use boost the first month to get the system and the parents getting to know each other, but of course to use the ease-off mode that brings less insulin. We tell them you can do it right away, for example in kindergarten at the end of the time when they are playing and moving a lot, and parents like that. So our onset cohort, we had 114 new onset patients in 2022 with an uprising number. We have 32 onsets yesterday, so lots of people coming more to us. We had 34 of them were preschoolers and 26 of them came after May 1st, so those are the ones we started with Ypsopump right away. 17 of them are already started on CamAPS, and 9 of them have the Ypsopump and are pending the APS start. There are different reasons: waiting for the sensor, as I showed you before, and too little amount of insulin. We decided against dilution. Several reasons for that. One is that we think the possibilities to do the dilution, to bring the diluted insulin to the parents, that some of the background is missing. And as we think in the honeymoon phase, there is low risk of hypoglycemia. The variability is not that high, so we decided let's wait to more than the 5 units, and we don't even dilute between 5 and 8 units, and we're happy with that. So this is one of our onset children. It's a 4.5-year-old boy, came without DKA, A1C 9.9 at the beginning. It was 7-8 days until we were able to start AID, and after 23 days of AID, so 100 days after onset, A1C was already 6.4%. Time in range 86%, no high hypos, and with a total daily dose of 0.4. So of course he is in honeymoon, but you can see in the honeymoon phase it works pretty good. And so in the night you see the adoption. There's only small amounts of insulin. When it's very low need of insulin, you see all this just little peaks at 2 and at 4. It's the minimum insulin that is administered by the system just to keep the insulin running. we put our data together of the cohort. Just to show you, it's young kids, 3.6 of age, so comparable to the real life data cohort Roman Hovorka showed us. We were not aware of the low part of females. That's interesting. We have to look deeper into that in registries, I think. We have 95 days until start of AID after onset, and we're happy with the A1C, which is 6.7 now in that onset cohort. And if we compare it to the PLGM cohort from the year before at the same point, well, of course, it's slow number, 17 versus 22, but there was a significant difference of that you can see here, 6.7 compared to 7.2. It's not the 1% Roman showed us after 2 years, but it's not 2 years, so we have some time to reach the 1%. We have a lower sensor glucose variability. Of course, doesn't change that much, but if you lower the glucose without lowering the variability, the standard deviation, then of course the variability coefficient doesn't change that much. Time above range, the numbers is lower here, but there was no statistical significance. Same amount of insulin. Same amount of insulin in both groups. You can see the TDD line, total daily dose, it's 0.5 in both groups. So with the same amount of insulin, better results. And what you can't see here, what Roman also said, the parents say, we sleep at night. And this is something quite different to the parents the years before, that they had to do a lot of work, had to put much efforts in the night, and that's not the case anymore. And that's what parents really do. And to our feeling, we have more relaxed onset parents now. And this is how it looks like. It was a question for us where to put the phone. And we had some friends that tailored these small backpacks. And the green label is our hospital's labels on there. So Nike has to be frightened. We're going into the things. And this is something we provide to the families. Of course, we use it for all our onset kids, but it's not only designated for onset patients, of course. This is a 3.5-year-old girl. That was our first patient at all that had the system. They were really waiting for it and stressing us and asking us when it's going to come to German market, so we could stress the colleagues and ask them. And they come from a very, very tight control with an A1C of 6.3% before. And they still improved in terms of A1C 0.1%, of course. They use the ease of regularly, they're used to the system, and they're happy with it. And the real improvement you can't see here, but as they had tight control before, they had to put much efforts in it. And also, these parents say, we sleep at night. And they were not unhappy before. They were happy, but they said, it's different now. It's different. We feel different. This is all of our other non-onset users. Lots of numbers here. I think it becomes more clear if I show you like that. This is the day they changed to a system, and then after 3 months and the last 14 days of sensor mean, of course, and A1C, there was one not very well controlled that improved very good, and I think all the others, the dots are together, so let's exclude the gray one that had some issues before, and then you can see all the others improve or stay the same, but there is most of them improvement. So one with no change in A1C, don't know what happened there. The yellow one, the last 14 days worked pretty much better than before. So they're happy as well. So let's conclude. Immediate AID in our hospital, in our system. Unfortunately, it's not possible due to the lack of sensor. We would like to do it after 21 days the latest. We'll do it at the earliest time possible. But what we know, there is a low hypo risk at the honeymoon phase due to the low insulin need. So we're not frightened not to provide them AID at first, but we would love to do. Ypsomed at onset is easy to learn. The families do. So we teach them. They have the app. They can start right away with a pump. But of course, it's not only indicated at onset, but they do. The training of the CamAPS afterwards, it's possible to do it in an outpatient setting. We do it until now due to the capacities on the ward. We would prefer to do it on the ward, but not due to the due to the training, but due to what we think might help the parents in contact to us. And we have good results. As I showed you this boys example, ISPA targets for preschool children are going down. There are the new guidelines out at December last year, and for preschoolers and for honeymoon phase, it's recommended to aim for 6.5% to help the children to avoid complications. So, thanks to our team, the diabetes educators team that really quickly implemented the new system. Once we heard now it's available in Germany, after 1 week we had the first patient on the system, and it's big efforts for the diabetes educators team, to the nurses team on the ward. The children are on the ward at onset, so the whole team, the night shifts, have to get to know the new system, and they did. To the families, of course, learning together with us, helping together with them to get to know the new system. And of course, thanks for your attention, and thanks for taking care of children with diabetes. And what I didn't include here, thanks Roman and your team for the system. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Torben, for this quite individual view on the patients. Can you take me a favor and take a seat here, and Roman as well? While you are walking up here, Roman, you can think probably about my first question. If there are no burning questions from the audience, if there are some, please stand up, come to the mic, state your name. Roman, just to break the ice before all the other people come with their questions. When it comes to insulin requirements, insulin doses, one of the thoughts, concerns was that with such an improvement in the glycemic control that you have shown in many studies, is there a 50% increase in the insulin dose required?
We don't really see, thank you for the question, we don't really see change in insulin needs generally. It might be for those really are poorly controlled, they might be under insulinized, but generally there is no change in any of the studies. What can happen, and what we see, is that there is a change of the distribution of insulin dose, so there is less bolus insulin, and it's absorbed by the closed loop. The closed loop is working behind. People don't need to give correction boluses, so that's the distribution changes, not the total daily dose.
Thank you to everybody. So, Torben, you mentioned that you wait related to Roman's recommendations 3 months before using the booth. And I think in onset children it works very well, but in the older children, when we start with the CamAPS, we would need, especially in the evening, the boost mode. So what would you say is the minimum time to wait till use it?
Well, we don't have that much experience, because we tell them to wait. If you say they need more insulin, especially in the evening, then we use the setting of the individual target. Then you can adjust the target according to the time of the day, and this is something that we do. So in the evening, then we would use a lower target.
Yeah, of course, but I mean, you know, not each evening is the same. So that's an option for the parents, yeah, to do each evening something different. So my question to Roman is, what would you suggest? So to wait 6 weeks, or it's really needed to wait 3 months?
Yeah. Just next to you on the right-hand side, there's our perfect team, Sarah and Candice. They are the one who knows there. We have other options, just to let you know. We have something called slowly absorbed meal. And sometimes I think it's quite interesting. People are attributing that evening rise in the children quite often to growth hormone. I don't think there is any clinical studies so far to prove that. Again, we think as well, we try to present it, but it is known that in evening the children fall asleep and just glucose shoots up. So a different way to manage it, one is through the boost, the other one is if they have an evening meal to do a slowly absorbed meal, so the system is able to give more insulin and it does it in a very responsive way. And sometimes people still, what some parents do, they, with the mirror up, they go there and they give a small correction bolus when the children falls asleep. I don't know whether Candice or Sarah wants to add anything to that.
Yes, thank you. I think it is very individual, but all those things can be helpful. I think we don't necessarily say don't use boost for the first 3 months. It's kind of don't overuse it, essentially. Allow the system to learn. But I think those tactics for really small children in the evening, either the slowly absorbed meal use if it is related to the content of the meal, or a small carefully delivered correction if that's what helps stop the very, very quick rise in glucose can be helpful, or using boost if the personal glucose target lowered on the odd occasion isn't doing what you'd like to do and it's just shot up, and then sure, it's fine to put boost on, because the great thing about boost is it's safe. It will stop boosting even if it's on, if the glucose drops back to target, so it's useful.
I think what we're trying to avoid is that you have a 1 hour boost and after that 1 hour ease off, and then after that 1 hour boost and after that. So I think trying to break that cycle, and that was probably the recommendation.
Well, let's continue with the next question.
Thanks for having me.
Theo Sassam from Rotterdam, the Netherlands. Would like to know, are there plans for a fully closed loop system when you use the CamAPS?
So
1 hour later.
We just about to finish a fully closed loop study in again, we're talking about type 1 diabetes, so we done one in the adults, and that study is just about to finish. It's just Cambridge single site study, and we just started recruiting for the pediatric arm of that fully closed loop study. Just to set expectation, we don't expect we achieve the same results with hybrid closed loop system. We always do 2 arms. We would never do 1 arm. Oh, I see. Oh, 1 hormone. Again, we are realistic on the outcomes and also on the cost as well. So
then another question in the back. Sorry.
Hi, Martin Tauschmann from Vienna, Austria. Thank you, Roman and Torben, for your presentations, and Lutz. My question relates to the onset in the very young kids or even older kids. In Austria, we're in a situation where we can actually start the CamAPS system right away at onset. So within the initial admission, it's usually 10 days, 14 days. They get an Ypsomed pump and they get a Dexcom sensor. And then our question is whether we should start the Automode right away, because initially insulin requirements might be quite high, and then they are honeymooning, or should we wait for the honeymoon phase to start the Automode? What's your recommendation or your experience?
Again, our suggestion, again, Julia is here of the team as well, Charlotte, our suggestion would be is to start straight away. The system is able to cope with these changes. Just so that you know, there was another stream of thinking is just we should punish these parents and they should need to learn the hard way to treat on the open loop so they can see what they gain through the auto mode, and I think that's not the way to go. So I would start straight away. That we might take. I think we need clinical guidance. We need a clinical consensus on that. But we're writing on the paper right now, and the suggestion is to start straight away.
So we are running a little bit late. One short answer. Short question.
Martin, we have experience now by chance. We had some sensor availabilities now for 2 kids on the ward during onset, and we started right away. And it worked. Yeah.
Okay, last question.
I've got a question about the algorithm. When you manually intervene and do boost or ease off, or even give like a manual dose, how does that impact the algorithm and for how long? Like, what does the system basically learn? How long does it remember what it learned?
Because what is called a model control algorithm, it can take the manual input it is thinking. So if the user gives insulin, the system will know it's coming insulin, will drop its own insulin delivery. So it can cope with very easily with all these personal interactions. So people can give extra correction boluses and yeah. It's not.
And does it learn? Does the algorithm learn from it? So if it sees that
Correct.
the manual was good, does it then mirror that? Or
so if you give correction boluses, the learning is affected. That's not a problem. If you give boost on ease off, what the algorithm is trying to say, what would the glucose do without ease off and boost? And it's more challenging. So it is more challenging for the algorithm. So that's one of the reasons we don't want to overdo boost on ease off, because it might affect. Because the algorithm is trying to find out what would happen without boost on ease off. So it tried to remove that.
Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that this 1 hour have boosted your knowledge about automated insulin delivery. Let me thank you, Ypsomed, and my colleagues here left and right for this very interesting session, and I wish you a wonderful day to hear.